Hello and welcome back to Morning Express. It is 7 a.m. here in Nairobi, Kenya. Well, past 7 a.m. and it is time for the political point. Since NASA presidential candidate made the controversial statement on land sale in Kajiado, reactions from nearly all quarters have not ceased to come. This coupled with the malignant IEBC ballot paper printing tender and the political rhetoric during the campaigns could not be more heated. On Political Point today, we shall seek to go behind now what has been branded the ICC cases propaganda. In studio to help us drive this conversation, we have risk analyst Dismas Mokua, governance expert Raymond Ochieng, Homa Bay Town Member of Parliament Peter Kaluma, and Kiharu Member of Parliament, who is also running for Murang'a Senate seat, Irongo Kangata. Gentlemen, welcome to the Political Point, and thank you for joining us this morning. And let's start off with what has, created a certain storm, and this is the comments made by Honorable Raila Odinga in regards to land. And of course, there has been hue and cry from left, right, and center. But before we have the discussion, why don't we first of all listen in to what Honorable Raila Odinga had to say so that we can be discussing it in context. And this is what he had to say. All right, and we shall get that soundbite as we go along. But I think many of us probably have had it. But let me start with you. Okay, I think we have it now. So let's listen to it so that we're able to refer to it after we have listened to it. This is what he had to say.
Sasa watu nalazimishwa kuuza tu mashamba yao. Unauza mashamba kwa sababu sio kupenda kwako. Unauza kwa sababu ya ufukara. Masivyo? Wao ndio wanakuja kuingia, kuvamia. Mpaka sasa nakuja kama sasa hakuna mashamba. Sababu ya ufukara. Hiyo tunataka kubadilisha. Tunaweza kubadilisha hiyo ili watu wasiuze mashamba yao. Baki na shamba. Usiuze kule anatoka sababu gani anakuja kwako? Si abaki kule kwao. Chabaki kule kwao. Hiyo ndio sababu tunasema tarehe 8 mwezi wa 8 mwaka huu ni siku ya mabadiliko. Siku ya ukombozi wa tatu wa Kenya na wa mwisho. Ili Wakenya waweze kupata haki yao. Kabila ya Masai ndio wanajua sana mambo ya dhuluma ya kihistoria. Walitolewa kule walikuwa naishi na wazungu. Wakaletwa ngambo hii. Alafu ile dhuluma wale ilifanyika wakati ile yote mpaka leo hajasawazishwa. Mambo ya mashamba. Iko katika report inaitwa Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission report. Tutatekeleza hiyo report.
All right, and that's what he had to say. Let me start with you, Honorable Irongo Kangata. As a lawyer, you've listened to the comments, and would you say they're being blown out of proportion and possibly the opposition leader is being quoted out of context?
No, I think those people who are criticizing Raila Odinga, they are very correct.
Why?
What Raila has used is what we call coded language. It is not language that is in express form. And by the way, it happens in all incitement matters. If you look at how the Hutu extremists in Rwanda incited their colleagues as against the Tutsi, when you look at what happened in 2007 in Rift Valley, you wouldn't find a situation where people were told, go kill a Kikuyu in public. No. They would use what we call a coded language. So when you look at the totality of the statements of Raila Odinga, to any rational listener, it's very clear that indeed he was saying that some people should not come and buy land. We all know about 95% of the people who tend to buy land in that region, they come from a certain tribe. So he's targeting that tribe, and he's also asking, why is it that they are coming from a certain region? Why can't they stay there? So he appears to be telling the Maasai, don't accept people from a certain region. They shouldn't come here, they should stay there. Who are they and why should they stay there? The Constitution is very clear that every person has the right to own land and to sell it and to transact it. And therefore, when he says such words which are coded, which appear to impute that no one should come into Maasai land and purchase land, is clearly targeting a certain tribe.
But now, when it comes to looking at it from a legal perspective, is it possible to draw any conclusion from coded language? Because really, it has to be very express.
No.
It can be interpreted either way.
No, you see, the point is, it's all known that in such incitement matters, rarely will you find a person saying, go kill Kikuyus directly, for instance, go kill Luos directly. If you can recall, in 2007, the non-indigenous tribes in Rift Valley, they were being called Madoadoa. When you look at that term Madoadoa, it means one can say directly that there's no incitement per se. But when you dig deep, you have now to analyze Madoadoa means what within that context. So to me, based on that speech, the context under which it has been said is very clear. He's targeting a certain tribe and he is therefore culpable and he should be persecuted and barred from vying in this general election.
Honorable Peter Kaluma, you're a lawyer as well. You've had your colleague in the bar basically give his opening remarks. What are your opening remarks?
Mike, from what I know, it takes a very strange mind to interpret what is being said here in the manner my brother is doing. But I'll forgive him. One, is a junior colleague. Two, I also do not know him to have been a very good lawyer in interpreting, statements like this. So let us put it in context. Raila is saying that because of poverty, people are selling their birthright in land and they are remaining without anything for their generations. And it is fact. That is issue number one. And it is something that is not just in Maasai land, by the way. You go even up to our places, up to my gate, Mike, after doing roads, I find people selling land until there is nothing they can leave for their offspring. So you're asking, where are you going after this? And invariably, they have so many children, these people who are selling land. For the Maasai, it becomes more particular. If you look at the history of the Maasai, how, the swathes of land they had in the country and how they continue to be squeezed. Raila is also saying the second thing, that we must deal with the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation report. And then, Mike, that is where the problem of Kangata and his ilk are. It is not that, Kikuyus are the people in Kajiado. By the way, over 10% of the population in Kajiado are Luos today. Kajiado and Narok have become, two counties where, Kenyans of all shades live. If I started counting for you the areas in Kajiado inhabited by Luos, you won't believe it. But
maybe so that we stay in focus, the statement in question is when he says, let people stay, why are they coming here? They need to stay where they...
Yes, don't sell your land to them. Why should they come here?
But isn't this a free country where you can buy land wherever you want to buy land? And it's willing seller, willing buyer?
It is willing seller, willing buyer. What the leadership who was speaking is saying is that it is becoming willing seller, willing buyer in conditions people are forced to. And this condition is poverty. And he's saying we have to deal with it. So that, we can deal with willing seller, willing buyer because people are at par, not because, some are forced by poverty, to sell land. In any event, let it be preserved. But I think what we are avoiding in diverting this thing, Mike, is one, whether President Uhuru Kenyatta can direct Raila to be arrested. And I can tell you it is a waste of time we are discussing an issue in that regard. It can't happen.
The reason why it becomes an issue is because of the timing. And secondly, as a country, we only have 48 days to go before the election.
Mike,
it becomes an issue because we need to put our leaders in check.
Mike, the media is giving this Jubilee propaganda unnecessary attention. What Jubilee has succeeded to do is to divert our attention from, corruption and looting in government, tribalism in government, debt burden, the cost of living we've been debating, to debating an issue. Is it not true that we should be talking about land reform? And in fact, Jubilee is trying just to ignite, you hear Kangata now talking Kikuyus, who are evidently not interested in voting, to go voting for them. I think time has come for us to now deal with the real issue. Are land reforms issues in TJRC report, and should we be dealing with them?
And just to correct that, I don't think he referred to Kikuyus per se. He said people
that is what
of a certain
about.
Community. I think that's your interpretation.
No, he mentioned.
You can. We'll get into an issue. Dismas Mokua, your thoughts and your comments on this particular issue and to broaden the conversation. It's not just about what Raila said, but we've had this happen time and again where we've had certain leaders say things which could potentially be volatile. Your thoughts?
Well, Mike, when you start discussing land, you make so many people in Kenya nervous because there are so many questions around that there are particular individuals or families with a very huge appetite for land acquisition. So the moment you introduce land, you make people nervous and they start running all over town. And you know there's a saying, a Victorian saying, that the guilty are always afraid and that they're always running. But when you're looking at the land issue, it's supposed to be willing buyer, willing seller. But most of the time, it's never a willing seller because most of the time when people are selling their land, it's because of economic conditions. Maybe you've incurred a huge medical bill and you don't have an opportunity to raise resources from elsewhere. There's no medical insurance, so you're forced to buy that piece of land. Or maybe you want to pay fees for your school children. And that's why it's very interesting that the two political formations are talking about free secondary education. So that if you're a parent with, say, 5 kids, you don't need to sell your piece of land. But I think the main issue that we are trying to avoid is, you recall during the last 6 months, we've been saying that our campaigns are supposed to be anchored around real issues, issues that affect bread and butter. The question we should be asking Kaluma now and Irungu is what are their coalitions doing in making the cost of living in Kenya affordable? Or in other words, with Jubilee, are you better off 4 years later? That's the question we're supposed to be asking. So that based on that, then we are able to say, they've made our lives better the last 4 years, we need to give them another term. Or maybe they failed to do that, let's try out with NASA. Now, the reason, and when you do that analysis, the only reason why Irungu and company are very happy to discuss the land issue is to make the campaign emotional, to fill the campaigns with emotion and drama, to run away from issues. Because the critical issues we're supposed to be addressing is the cost of living in Kenya, is about availability of, say, mortgages, the issues affecting the normal Kenyan. And you recall right from independence, President Kenyatta is on record as having told people, do not necessarily sell your land if you don't need to. President Moi did the same. A few years ago when President Uhuru Kenyatta was in Mombasa, when he was giving out title deeds, he told the custos that I don't want to give you a title deed, and then a few hours later, you go and sell this piece of land. A few days he was in Kiambu, he did the same thing. And in my view, when a leader tells you, you don't need to sell land. Because where I come from in a party in Kisii, the way Kaluma has indicated, people are selling land left, right, and center. And what happens after a few days? They're given money, they go to Mombasa for vacation, they come back after 6 weeks, they're broke, and they become a village nightmare. So when a leader says you do not need to sell land because of unnecessary reasons, it makes sense. And you see the issue Mr. Raila Odinga is addressing is people are selling land because of poverty. It's not willing buyer, it's not willing seller. They are addressing land because of poverty.
All right.
And we now need to put Kaluma and Irungu into challenge. We ask them, what are you going to do to ensure that the reasons as to why people sell land, medical bills, education issues, that in future a Maasai man will not be required to sell his land to go and pay fees.
All right. And Michelle Ngela, I believe, has some response that's coming through before we hear from Raymond. Michelle.
All right, absolutely, Michael. A lot of feedback coming in on social media. So we have Paul Otieno here saying, I think the lawyer seems to be too political to be taken seriously. I'm not sure which lawyer he is talking about. We have several here. He also says coded language to be understood. The recipient must understand the codes. So what's your pick to that? I'm sure talking to Irungu Kangata. But he also says, I think, Mike, you cannot talk of willing seller and buyer where conditions are not equal to the parties. So that is another situation that we need to discuss. Is this a level playing ground altogether? But he continues on to say that our problem is that we do not like touching on the real issues affecting us. So this is a conversation that is ongoing. Remember, for those who are on Twitter, we're also live on Periscope, so you can log on to our Twitter page, KTN Morning Express, and catch the conversation on the go wherever you are. So that is a conversation going on. We'll continue to take more of your thoughts as we go along.
All right, thank you very much, Michelle. And yeah, keep them coming. Let me come to you, Raymond. Do you think it's a level playing ground, just like Paul Ocheng says there? And the issue here being the fact that those who are selling may be selling out of desperation, according to what the opposition leader was saying.
Thank you so much, Mike. We must understand that this is political competition, and we knew very well that after the primaries we were going to be focusing on the messaging. And I think what moving forward on this land issue, you know, when the political formations come, Mike, it's about improving livelihoods, and you cannot talk about livelihoods within the Maasai and Kajiado areas without talking about land. So land as a process is something that we have really evaded as a nation. When we came up with the National Lands Commission, and this was to try and address some of these things. There is a TJRC report. So in terms of what I'm seeing, and I think sometimes we need to really tone down this reckless, sensational interpretation from Mheshimiwa Kang'ata, because if you look at what Raila Odinga was saying, I don't hold brief for them, I think Peter Kaluma does. But in terms of the context in which they were talking about, it was about you in terms of how do we address the poverty in this area? And to address the poverty in that area, then you must improve the livelihood of those people to a point whereby when I sell land not because I am poor. So if we get the interpretations that we are having and blowing all these things out of context, then we are going to be losing it. I'm really waiting to see what Jubilee is going to come up with. I know very well they may be moving there very soon, and I want to see what's going to be their alternative, because when you talk about the Maasai's, Mike, they must come up with their manifesto that is going to be addressing what issues of land. So I expect what Mheshimiwa Kang'ata should do here is to say that in terms of what Jubilee is going to do, this is what we are going to be doing to make sure the Maasais are not going to sell their land. And believe me or not, you can take it to the bank. Jubilee is going to address how to address the poverty within this area, because the issue of selling land is evident. So let's have competitive messages. Let's have messages that are practical, and as Dismas has said, we avoid the emotional bit of it. When we go to Mombasa, there'll be issues of land, and if you segment this nation, you will find that Mike, different regions will be having different offshoots and parameters in which you need to address to lock those voters. So to the Maasais, it is land. In Nyanza, it is going to be a different thing. In Western, you see the issue of industry, because we have the Mumias, you have the Nzoia. So there are specific issues that have to be addressed in this area. But if we go with these reckless, sensational interpretations, then it's not good for our country.
Honorable Irungu Kang'ata, the issue that may have brought us here is the fact that the question that Dismas asked earlier on, are we better off 4 years or 5 years into Jubilee's regime? Your comments on that, your thoughts on that?
Yes, we are.
In what way?
One, in terms of provision of energy, in terms of free education has been expanded to include secondary school, where you now find secondary school fees have gone down. For instance, in these schools, people are paying about 10,000 per year. In several parameters, but allow me to reply to these three gentlemen. First and foremost, this is a very serious issue. We all know it is the main issue that fueled the several tribal clashes which tended to coincide with elections in 2007, in 1997 and 1992. The issue surrounding land was very key in causing those chaos. Number two, even barring the argument whether what Raila said was criminal, liable, we should also look at the other aspect of, it appears Raila is a communist who does not believe in free enterprise. Yes, it's very clear, because if you are a firm believer of free enterprise, which by the way is enshrined in our constitution, in terms of the freedom to transact, for instance, you should not tell the people to become fixated with land. Anyone telling a Kenyan to be fixated with land is a person who is quite backward thinking. Why? Indians are the most successful people in this country, as an ethnic group. They don't own any land. They live in towns. By the way, we should be telling our people, land as an asset is an old-fashioned method of living in a society. We should be looking for modern assets like shares, like investing in education. Okay, to me, it tells that these guys here, they are communists. If we give them land, if we give them political power, they will be telling us, no, there's no private ownership of land. You own land collectively as a collective entity.
Irungu Kang'ata,
Don't transact land.
Coming back to the question in hand, is the common mwananchi fine? There is energy, there is electricity, there's all those things, but we don't have unga on the shelf. Those are basic commodities. Those are basics that are required by in Maslow's food law of the chain of law. It's one of the basic things that you require. Isn't that evidently failure on the government?
No.
To just supply basic requirements like food.
Let me tell you one thing. Some of these problems that are besetting Kenyans are beyond the national government purview. For instance, agriculture is devolved. So therefore, it means when problems beset that industry, we should be blaming individual governors. For instance, this guy, he comes from Homa Bay. His governor should be explaining to us what has he done towards ensuring, one, your farmers have what we call cheap seedlings, fertilizer, isn't it? And by doing that as a governor, you are going to have lower cost of flour, for instance. You are going to increase the output of the maize farmers. But this idea of blaming everything on the national government, when you have a devolved system, you are doing nothing. Your governors are sleeping and eating your money. Don't blame Uhuru.
All right.
Don't blame Uhuru.
When you go to the first chapter of our constitution, it says that the sovereignty lies with the people. And when we go to cast our ballots, the power in Kenya, the buck rather, stops with the president.
Explain one thing,
No, wait a minute.
No.
Let me make my point first. You had your moment and you spoke and nobody interfered with you. So allow me to make my point.
No, but you should be replying to one point.
Allow him to
let me speak first. I don't want to start using unsavory terms on your person. Now, the buck stops with the presidency. You would have the 47 county governments and you have a national government. And when you talk about food security in Kenya, the policy is supposed to come from the national government. And if anything goes wrong in Kenya, the buck stops with President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. That's where the buck stops. And when you're saying that you are better off, say, 4 or 5 years later, there are so many opportunities. Irungu says that there's been an increased supply in energy. Maybe we are about to become energy secure. That's cool. But now you have to translate that to a normal household in Kibera or in Kisii. And for the case of Irungu in Murang'a, how does that energy security affect you as a person? Is your life better off? And I've got so many friends, especially in the middle class today, who are unable to service their mortgages because of the economy, the way the economy is performing. A number of them who bought properties in Kileleshwa are now being forced to go to other lower income areas. They're having to move their kids from upmarket schools like Banda and taking them to other schools. Now, that's a very useful parameter of measuring whether or not your life is better off 4 or 5 years later. And when Irungu Kangata wants to speak in a manner which is very reckless, to start to sensualize things, it's not going to help us as a nation. Because we want to have a very sober conversation and say, you're proposing to offer free secondary education from January. How are you going to do this? For the case of NASA, they're saying they want to offer it as soon as they get into office. And we know for a fact that that's laced with a bit of lies. Because in the event that Raila Odinga wins... No, in the event that Raila Odinga wins, he's not going to be sworn into office immediately. It's going to take some time. And before you get the supplementary budgets working, probably the realistic time of implementing it is next year. Now, those are the issues, Mike, we are supposed to interrogate. Not to become sensational and say that if you give power to NASA, they are communist, we are going to become a communist nation. There's no communist nation in Kenya today.
Mike, let us, close the land matter so that we can discuss the failings of Jubilee and what NASA proposes to do. And I want to agree that for once we have a panel which is, dealing with the issue of land. And Kangata land is going to be an issue in this election. And I like what my brothers are saying, that when you go to particular regions, you are going to ask what is their biggest issue and how, as a leadership seeking vote, you are going to deal with it. When you go to Maasai areas, and let me tell you, largely Coast Province, land is a fundamental issue. So the issue you would be asking as a leader in Maasai area is, what as the leader of Jubilee are you going to do about it? What as the leader of NASA coming in or seeking the presidency of Kenya are you going to do about it? And the Maasai problem, Mike, let me say it for once. People like Kangata think that it is these people like Kaloma and other, ethnic members, buying land in Maasai land who are a problem there. The biggest, land problem in Maasai is historical. The next or the second biggest problem in Maasai in terms of land tenure is their own elite system. Because you remember the Maasai land was around this communal kind of ownership, the land group representatives. The elite bought their ways when the groups were thinking they were in their groups and went and registered individual titles. And remember, this was supported by law that said that once you get individual title, even if you stole it from the larger group, the land will be yours. If you look at the sizes of land being held by the the original political elite of the Maasais, you would agree to what we are talking about. So what Raila is saying is, let us implement Truth, Justice and Reconciliation report. That is number one. Let us look at the history of land and see who took it from the Maasais. And remember, from the Lenana Agreement and the Agreement and others, the 1904 Agreement, the 1911, you see Maasais being pushed out of land. We may not go that far, but we are saying, in terms of the current situation, you have people selling land. One, because a Maasai thought when you sold land, it is still yours. And we started in law that in a Maasai philosophy of land, land is just to be held to use. You graze animals, you leave it there, you come back. The question you need to ask, when a Maasai is selling land in Narok or in Kajiado, does he believe he's going to come from Namanga and find it fenced? And we are saying, if it is because of poverty that you're selling land, we have to address that as we address matters in Truth, Justice and Reconciliation report. The problem we have is that now we have been diverted. And what we have here, Mike, is state capture and use of state parameters to protect self-interest of individual leaders. What should, annoy or make Kenyans a bit, disturbed about this is that you get President Kenyatta saying that Raila said this, they are saying it very casually, somewhere in Bomet, and we are going to deal with you. Then you have institutions that ought to be independent, like the DPP, the NIC, jumping in to say we are going to investigate Raila, giving phone calls. We have so many issues concerning institutional reform. And I think my coupled problem to state capture is that we have very many small people heading very big offices in our country. We need to remove people like Aparo, people like Tobiko, so that we can deal with
we'll come to that in just a bit, because the institutions, as much as they claim to be independent, that might not be the case. When we come back, I want us to look at the IEBC. But Michelle, we have some feedback coming in as well, and maybe to conclude on the land issue.
Really following up on this conversation, Mike. So let's take a look at some of the comments coming in. We have Mr. Oji, first of all, calling out some politicians and the media for scandalizing Raila Odinga's Kajiado remarks, saying that he was clearly addressing poverty in the region. And then he also says it is a fact that the Kajiado County government also banned all land transactions over 2 years ago to cap the same issue that Raila Odinga was addressing in the region. And then we also have Mawera J here, he brought in the willing buyer, willing seller issue. And one of his comments, he says that politicians are tricking us. Raila has huge tracts of land, the same to Uhuru. So according to him, no single politician is honest on matters land. And when it comes to free secondary education, we have Paul Otieno here calling out the Jubilee government, saying this is a lie, Mike. My sister pays more than 30,000 shillings in a day secondary school. And just as we wind up here, Mr. Oji thinks that Uringo Kangata is overly sensational about Raila Odinga's Kajiado's pronouncement, as much as it is an emotive issue. So a lot of feedback coming in with regard to the land question, and we have Mr. Oji here saying, or Paul Otieno rather, saying that for Jubilee government, it is development for one's mud grass thatched house, and it's another question that he wants us to address. So carry on, Mike.
All right, thank you very much, Michelle. And let's now move the conversation on, because the other issue that we have at hand on a political point is the IEBC. Let me start with you, Raymond. In regards to where we are today, we've had the IEBC attacked severally and consistently, although there are those who also argue they have not been attacked. It's just that they have, exposed themselves and behaved in a manner that, people question. Your thoughts on where we are today, given that we only have 48 days to go?
Mike, I've always been branded as bashing IEBC. In terms of, we look at the trajectory, what has been happening previously, just capturing some of the events that we've been having in the IEBC timeline, we've found a commission that sometimes has engaged on non-priorities. And sometimes you really wonder, based on the time, we understand they came at a very difficult time. There are new commission, and we know stages of an organization, the forming, storming, norming, and performing. We really understand that it would be really a problem. And we've also seen leadership crisis in the IEBC. We saw procurement officer being ejected from the commission. So all these wrangles, and we had now IEBC, to me, I strongly believe, fighting in court on non-priorities and not really focusing on the critical areas. And I always say, Mike, we are at a precipice of an election violence that we've never had before, because this political competition is too heated comparatively if you compare with what we had in the last general elections, because many things are at stake. Uhuru is trying to fight not to become a one-term president in Kenyan history. Raila Odinga is fighting his last chance. So if he loses, I don't know what Kaluma and Kangata may say, but I believe if he loses, then we will never have him again. So everybody has this time to be the last shot that they have. So it means the IEBC, I really feel that the opaqueness in which they've been handling the process, and they are rather strong on addressing an issue when they are reacting to what has happened. But we've not seen them. And the threshold of this election is so high. If you look at Article 86, Mike, it's very clear that this election should be transparent, should be accountable. So the threshold of the election has been underpinned in the Constitution.
Right. Let me take a call.
That's where the scorecard is.
Let me take a call from Hillary in Nairobi. Good morning, Hillary. Thank you for calling. To your comment, and I'll request that you make it as short as possible, or your question. Hillary.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Hi.
Well, go right ahead.
Yes. Before you move to IEBC, I wanted just to give a comment on, a small comment on the issue Raila raised about the land.
Make it brief if you can.
Hello?
Yes, make it as brief as possible.
Well, I wanted to make a small comment on the issue Raila raised, which I think people are fearing to address things that have affected Kenyans for a long time. And number two, now that you have moved to IEBC, I think the process in itself, even young people who are going to vote first, they are highly tensed when we are not able to see how other people have actually ended up. And I saw something going on about Kivuitu, how he ended up. So it is not a question of Raila having the last time or the first time. It is a question of posterity. When we see in France elections coming out results the same day, very perfect, systems. But in Kenya, we have people who are fearing just voting and losing. So the gentleman called Raymond should not tell us the last time and the first time for somebody. It should be that what I should see as Umondi, as a process, as a professional, and somebody who respects what each and every expectation of a young child to an old one is. And number two, in terms of what IEBC should have done, procurement process is something which is watertight. And we should not play around with it because it is becoming very emotional when we are not accepting that Kenyans are people who are intelligent. And I respect people who are honest, like somebody like Kaluma and the gentleman, the analyst on the right. But these people will talk honestly. But biases like who is going last, who is going fast, those are non-issues.
All right, thank you.
Do the right things.
Thank you, Hillary. I think we've got the point there. Thank you very much. And remember, you're welcome to call in case you'd like to participate or throw in your weight behind maybe what has been said or maybe disagree. Honorable Irungo Kangata, your thoughts on the IEBC and, of course, the question that is being asked. We still have 48 days to go. Why can't they just cancel the tender if that's all it requires and get a new somebody else to supply those ballot papers?
Well, if at all IEBC is going to cancel that tender, the impression that is going to be created, it is that it is an institution that is not independent, which is contrary to the Constitution. It is an institution that is operating at the whims of an opposition party. And to me, IEBC ought to discharge its mandate in a free and fair and a very independent manner. So these criticisms which are coming from the side of NASA, they are merely issues which are coming from a party that is clearly
is not going to this an election to win.
You don't see a problem with the executive possibly having met with the suppliers of the ballot papers, yet that's a very major stakeholder. You don't see a problem there?
Well, personally, I would see a problem if at all that meeting was to discuss that tender or anything related to elections. But to the best of my knowledge, I saw one representative, a person who attended that meeting, giving a press conference and asserting that it had nothing to do with elections. It was what we call the Chamber of Commerce of Dubai, which came calling here in Nairobi. And one person happened to be in that team who by coincidence also appears to own the firm that is going to do the printing. So it had nothing to do with elections. And therefore, for us to keep on saying we cancel this, we do this, I don't know why NASA people are putting up roadblocks against everything that IEBC is doing. They went to court challenging the issue regarding the auditing of voters' register. They are now challenging the issue to do with the ballot tender. I don't know which other aspect they are going to. Yes, in fact, they have also sponsored some NGOs to challenge tallying at the central place. So it appears like...
But some of those things you're saying, we don't have proof as to whether they've been sponsored by NGOs. So those are statements we cannot verify.
No, you can't say that because it is in public realm. Raila Odinga and his team, they have said they are going to boycott election if at all IEBC is going to be successful in that appeal against the High Court decision on that issue. So the point is, they are criticizing IEBC left, right, and center, notwithstanding. They were very instrumental to the creation of this.
I'll have to pause you a little bit.
Including the chairman, I think, was an ODM member. I don't know why.
We need to let the home channel go. In Rungu Kangata, hold on a bit to that thought. I'm coming back, but we need to let those on KTN Home proceed to Life and Style. And for those of us on KTN News, we continue with the conversation right here on the political point. So for those of us on KTN Home, it's time for Life and Style. All right, Dismas, maybe I could see you, sort of reacting to what Irungu Kangata was saying. Maybe what your thoughts are to what he had to say regarding IEBC.
The bottom line in any country, and using France as a recent example because they've had elections as late as 2 days ago, a successful election is described by two things. Number one, having predictable systems. Number two, having unpredictable outcomes. And if there's anybody in Kenya who has issues around IEBC, whether it's NASA, whether it's Jubilee, those people must come out today and raise those issues. If you smell a rat, if you think that there's something going on at IEBC which is going to compromise the quality of our election, you must come out. And that's very important for two reasons. When we elect Kaluma and Irungu through, say, a process which is not free, fair, and credible, they go to the National Assembly or Senate, then they make decisions affecting the nation for the next 5 years. That's why we must be sure that the people's will is represented in those elections. Now, for the matter of the Dubai-based company, whether or not there's been a conflict of interest, the issue has generated so much debate that if you allow that organization to go ahead and print those ballots and bring them to Kenya, and then we go to an election based on their work, in as much as probably there's nothing wrong with the Dubai-based company doing anything, but the perception created is that this organization has gone to bed with one of the players. And assuming whatever NASA is saying is actually right, if you're the president of the Republic of Kenya and you invite the CEO of IEBC to come to State House for a meeting, and in that meeting, there's one of the printers based in Dubai, the president does not need to tell you that I want you to give this man business. In communication, you say that there is an implied statement. The fact that one of the players has invited you to State House, that's alone, that's sufficient. And most CEOs would react in that particular manner. But making progress, some arguments that you've had people making are very ridiculous. They're saying that because of the value of this contract is 2.5 billion, if you cancel it, we are going to suffer damages as a nation. But the big question is, you saw what happened in 2007, 2008. So many people died. There was a crisis. So are we just going to say, if this contract is flawed, we are just going to go ahead and do the election because we fear the penalty of 2.5 billion? I don't think that would be a rational thinking. Mm-hmm. And also IEBC keeps on missing the point, especially on the tenders. They've said a number of people are casting aspersions on the integrity of the process. So we are inviting you to join us to go to Dubai. And you see, the question here is, Nobody doubts the capacity of the Dubai-based company to print the ballots. That's not in question. It's the integrity of the entire process. And for me, my understanding of printing, it's not rocket science, it's not anything complicated. That's something which can be done in a week. You can get a new printer in a week. And at this stage, you have to give I'll quote some pat on the back. Him and his team have indicated that if this process has been so compromised, why can't we then get a separate printer to do the ballots for the presidential election? Because you see, that's where really all the elections we've ever had in Kenya, the complaints come from the presidential ballots. It's not parliamentary, it's not for gubernatorial, it's the presidential ballot.
Right.
That's where the rubber meets the road, and that's what we must address. And for me, I would encourage any Kenyan who smells a rat at IEBC, even if it's today, if you think there's something wrong at IEBC, go there today, look for these two lawyers who are also politicians, they go to court, so that when we cast our ballots, and one of the callers has indicated, when you go to cast your ballot on the 8th of August, you need to do it with peace of mind. You know that you've done your civic responsibility, constitutional responsibility. You go back home. You're not supposed to start stocking food before August 8th.
Let me pause you and move to Michelle, who has a few calls to pick. Michelle.
Absolutely. Let's begin in West Pokot. We have James calling in. James, good morning. What's your question or comment?
Okay. Hello?
Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to tell I have 3 points, by the way. One is, I'm talking about the issue of Raila's hate speech. I want to remind people that there is a time last year, I think Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta went to Mombasa and actually tried to advise those people not to sell their land after issuing them the title deed. He went also to Kiambu advising them. So when they say hate speech, for them to insist, semantically, when somebody analyzes what you have used in your context, is that person will change the content of the content of your statement, or rather of your speech. So they only try to analyze one word, which is wrong. So it is actually Jubilee or other people who are actually turning it to be the hate speech. But it was actually a mere piece of advice to the community of Maasai community. 2 is on IEBC. I just want to advise IEBC. When we are having somebody like a building burning, which is on fire, then we say we cannot go for water because of time coverage from here to there. It is wrong. Then you use petrol, which is actually near. You will actually be increasing the fire.
All right.
IEBC, the issue of time actually should not be control the IEBC, because we had 13 companies that had actually shortlisted. Now we are having one from Dubai, which is Kurai, and the other one.
All right, there are many things. That is James from West Pokot. Let's also hear very briefly from Steve, who is calling in from Busia. Steve, what's your question or comment this morning?
Habari Michelle, Mike na panel.
Mzuri sana, endelea.
Mimi kwanza ningependa kuanza na hili swala la kusema ya kwamba Raila aliongea vibaya kuhusu shamba. Right now, Mike, as we are talking like this, niko hapa Busia, vijana wanausha mashamba kiolela kununua pikipiki. How can you say shamba kununua pikipiki na hawameki, baadaye wamerudi sasa kwa malandi tena kukomboa na ni kwao nyumbani, simply because hawakupata mshauri ya kuwaelezea kuhusu shamba. Na ukikumbuka vizuri sana Mheshimiwa Raila alisema kuhusu shamba kiolela. Jina kiolela hapo najua wasomi mko hapa mnalielewa. Shamba la pili nataka kukuja hii IEBC. Mike, every time wakati opposition inaambia IEBC ya kwamba hii kitu ama hili jambo fulani linaenda vibaya, you find Mheshimiwa Irungo's team wanatetea, wanadefend IEBC sana. So jambo lilikuwa wali Mr. Irungu Mheshimiwa, how come hii ni timu tunacheza, huyu ni referee, na referee obviously wana make mistake kwa kila timu kikiwa uwanjani, anaweza sema offside, anaweza peana penalty pande hii yenye haiko. How come si akipeana penalty pande yenu nini bado mnashangilia mnasema iko sawa, ambapo sio kitu ya kutendeka? Tafadhali tunataka kuambia IEBC hivi popote walipo. Nimesikia msemo mmoja amesema transparency and whatever. IEBC must come clean Mikey, you have said something at wanakuwa attacked. They are not being attacked. They are being told, you do this, you mess. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That is Steve calling in from Busia. Let's also hear from Doreen calling in to Morning Express. Thank you for calling. What's your question or comment?
Morning.
Good morning, Doreen. Go ahead.
Yes, I have 3 points to make concerning the debate that's currently going on. First thing is that I just want to say that it's very clear that Kenyans can see what's happening, and there could be many things that have been peddled, but Kenyans know what is happening. And one thing is clear, that IEBC is clearly not independent, because there's someone who asked somewhere in the panel that why does Jubilee keep responding on behalf of IEBC every time that there's an allegation? The IEBC should be in a position to appoint someone among themselves to speak for them. The other thing is the age demographic, which I represent, which is between 20 and 30. We've been treated for long enough by people older than us that one part of the other side, I'm from Mount Kenya region. So clearly, there's been this thing that has been peddled, like the other people from the other side are like this and like that. But it is very clear that the Jubilee administration has failed us. And one thing I want to assure this nation is that our votes shall speak. That is what shall happen on August 8th. And the fear of the other person from the other side taking over, this is going to happen, they're not going to support our businesses, it's clear that has been a lie. And the young people have noticed that. So it's very clear where this nation is headed. And there are no jobs. The young people are suffering, and we can clearly see. The other issue I have with Jubilee is that they never admit when they have done wrong. They will always keep defending themselves. Even Irongo Kangata knows the failures of the Jubilee administration, and even someone like Ambrose Weda, he'll come there all the time and just support Jubilee even when he knows that there are things that are going wrong. So my message to this nation is that we can see. The young people can see, and the old people who are bold enough to admit the wrongdoings of this nation, our votes shall speak, because we are praying for this nation.
Very strong point. That is Doreen calling in. Thank you very much, Doreen. And just to wind up with the comments here, we also have Paul Otieno saying IEBC is not only independent, but has consistently shown that it is not, with Jubilee acting as their spokesman. So a lot of allegations, especially directed towards the Jubilee administration. Irungu Kangata, your response?
Two issues. One, the issue regarding IEBC and the example that was given of a football match referee. One, you had the first referee. That referee was a person called Hassan. You come and demand that referee to go home. He goes home. Then you bring another referee, and you know time is running. We are about, I think, 1 month towards the final lap. Surely the team which is not complaining, surely cannot agree for the referee to be kept being attacked, whereas it's only 1 month to the elections. It appears they want this second referee to be kicked out, and time is running. So the reason why we always at times appear to be defending referee is because these guys they keep on shifting goalposts. And by the way, this is a referee who came into that office via actions and agitation by one party mainly. We had no problem with Hassan. They brought this new guy who incidentally happened to have been a member of ODM. That's number one. On the issue of land, Raila's sentiments were okay until he brought in the aspect of attacking the buyers. When he started saying, no, these people want to buy land, why can't they stay where they come from? To that extent, now when you now combine his original remarks, you marry together with these next remarks, they now bring what we call a coded language that is very clear to any rational thinker. They were intended to a certain group that is buying land in that region of Kajiado. And again, also, that whole idea of telling people not to buy land or even sell land. Who tells you these people are selling land because they have problems per se? Who tells them that? Maybe they are very happy. But the people who sell land at times tend to flourish. To flourish. I want to repeat again. Asians are the richest people in this country. They don't own any land.
Let me come to
They
Honorable
don't own any
Peter
land.
Kaluma as we wind up on the issue of IEBC. Just like Doreen has just mentioned, for Kenyans, she says they see, and what we want to guard mostly is the credibility of the vote. Once every Kenyan has done their civil duty and right to go and vote, that vote must be protected to be valid. So, way forward regarding IEBC and where we are today.
Mike, one is that the elections are going to be held on 8th of August.
That's not going to change.
So that is not going to change. Number two is that while our previous elections have been reduced into rigging competitions, the elections of this year shall never be rigged. And that requires all of us as Kenyans, whether you are Jubilee, NASA, or an independent, or in whatever political formation, to, shout out everything that can give the idea that we are taking back our elections to the past riggings. Look at this thing we are talking about in terms of perception. And let us not be lied to that IEBC commissioners just came the other day. Remember, under the law we passed with Kangata, these commissioners are now in charge of, policy and strategic directions. The day-to-day operations of IEBC is the work of the Secretariat. You have the president, who for these purposes is a competitor in the coming elections, being confirmed by Kangata to have met a team of people who included somebody associated with this firm. And you have the president, this very competitor we are facing, you are being told is outside the country, again meeting this team. Then you have a tender flouted openly. That tender is cancelled through a judicial process. You have time to do restricted bidding. And by the way, this is about 6 months to election. It does not happen, it is stifled midway. And then you have the IEBC commissioners, telling you that even with the judicial cancellations of the tender, it is still this firm to do it.
Okay, because of time.
Look at that in totality.
Yes, because of time, let's get to the conclusion.
Yes,
what's the way
you
forward?
like it or not. This IEBC is compromised on the tender bid. And in terms of our conclusions, I believe it is not that we have advised NASA, but it would be foolhardy for us to go into elections on the basis of papers that have been printed by this firm, knowing our history of a country of ballot stuffing. It is even more worrying that Jubilee, instead of profiling solutions, is defending this.
In your opinion, Honorable Kaluma, if they cancel the tender, is IEBC ready for the election? In
fact, they are very ready. Let me answer it in one line. In the previous elections, we used to do party nominations, and 3 weeks later, we are doing elections. They have chosen the path of direct tendering. And let me say, let them directly tender. Who said we have to tender these things to Dubai or wherever? And why can't even government print these things if there is integrity around it? Let us not dupe people into saying there is no time.
Right.
There is a lot of time. We have 50 days to elections.
Raymond, I need your closing comments. And as we look at especially where we end the issue regarding land, possibly what you'd say to Kenyans, because at the end of the day, we are the ones who are going to suffer if this country burns.
Yeah, on the issue of land, I think from what we are seeing, actually we're not responsible for what the callers are saying, Mheshimiwa Irungu. And you are saying, I think Kenyans knows the truth, Mike, and I believe Kenyans are going to make the right decisions. And I think these political charms that we are getting and the extreme positions that we are getting, I think is not going to change the minds of Kenyans, because I think every sector and every area knows how the economy is performing and is affecting them. And then, Mike, finally on the IEBC, and I would want to agree, printing of papers is a psychomotor process. Psychomotor it's a mechanical process that even if a farm was to be brought today and they outsource this function, actually the papers can even be printed in 2 days by multinationals. It can. So I just go back to one thing. The threshold of this constitution has placed a high premium on the transparency of these elections. And I say, and I remind Kenyans, I'm not a pessimist, but I'm telling you that if things may not go right, and we have a responsibility to make things right, we will not sit and say that elections are going to be fair if we don't make sure that the processes and the integrity and the perception, Mike, of the transparency. Because I really believe, and I support Mheshimiwa Kangata on this, that I really believe that this election can still even be fair with this firm from Dubai. But if there is a perception that this is going to be wrong because there is already a side that this company has with the Jubilee government, then I really think that we must be really honest enough to make sure that we create that this election is fair. Because if it will not be perceived to be fair, then, Mike, we are going to be in a crisis the way we are.
Your closing comments.
You know, there's a very high probability that IEBC has done the right thing by giving this Dubai company the tender. Now, what the communications team at IEBC is supposed to do is to make public the parameters considered. Let them take us through the entire process so that next time when somebody from NASA says that this company has had some unacceptable relationship with Jubilee, then we can actually dismiss NASA. But at this stage, when Chebukati and company, they are very mute on this issue, then you create an opportunity for rumors and propaganda. So we need to have very solid communications coming from IEBC. And then on the land matter, and one of the callers has indicated that, in fact, when the new governor took over, Governor Nkedianye, he also imposed a blanket ban on land transfer. Although he doesn't have that legal mandate to do as such. But so it demonstrates to the entire world that even before Mr. Raila Odinga made his position on that, the local leadership, the local governor had already indicated that position. Now, it may be interesting to find out whether or not those land boards within Kajiado are actually consulted when the transaction is taking place. And believe you me, there are very few rational Kenyans who can sell their ancestral land if they're not under any sort of duress.
All right. We'll need to wind up right there. Irungu Kangata, closing comments, 30 seconds.
It is very clear that NASA is not prepared for the general elections. For us, we are gearing up. We're asking when will 8th of August come, because we are so sure of winning.
Right.
So that because Jubilee is winning.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. That's a political point, and I'll hand over to Michelle.
No, we are gearing
as
up
we wind up this segment.
Mike, and closing comments here. First of all, we have Sientoye Lucy says, and this is speaking to Kangata, it is not okay to compare poor Maasai to most illiterate Indians because they have no capital for startups, so they might not have the land. So that is there. And then just as we wind up, some new comments coming in. Polotiano, IEBC should only be transparent, but must also not only be transparent, but must also be seen to be fair. And Michael Mukole, was any tribe mentioned by Raila? Why this all self-consciousness and guilt? The statement by Raila is double-edged. And Paul also says, tell Kangata that Hassan never went home. He was sent home against Jubilee's wish. So do keep that conversation going on social media. It is now 16 minutes past the hour and taking a short break here on Morning Express. We're on the last leg of your favorite morning show. When we come back, news headlines for this hour. Stay with us.